Confidence is not about being the loudest person in the room or the one who commands attention through force. It is about having a quiet strength that comes from self-assurance, from knowing exactly who you are and what you stand for. When a woman walks into a room with true confidence, she doesn't need to compare herself to anyone else. She doesn't need to prove her worth because she already understands it. Her power is not in competition, but in conviction. She radiates certainty, not arrogance, because she knows that her value isn't determined by the standards or opinions of others. Comparison is one of the greatest thieves of confidence. The moment we look to the left or right to measure our progress, we start to lose focus on what makes us unique. The confident woman refuses to define herself by someone else's timeline, beauty, success, or path. She understands that every woman's journey unfolds at its own pace, and that hers is not behind. It's right on time. Confidence comes from embracing your individuality, not by trying to match someone else's version of success. It's about trusting that who you are right now is already enough. The world constantly tries to put women in boxes, telling them how they should behave, what they should achieve, and when they should speak. But a confident woman knows that her identity cannot be confined to anyone's expectations. She does not shrink to fit into spaces that were never designed for her voice. Instead, she expands them. She brings her authenticity to every room. She enters and commands respect through her presence, not her perfection. Her confidence isn't loud, but it's undeniable. It's the kind that comes from being aligned with her values, her vision, and her purpose. When you no longer need comparison to feel validated, you become unstoppable. You begin to operate from a place of inner security instead of external approval. You no longer chase validation, you attract respect. The confident woman knows that her self-worth doesn't fluctuate based on the opinions or recognition of others. Whether she is applauded or overlooked, she remains grounded. Because her sense of self isn't conditional, it's consistent. It's not something given by others, it's something she's already claimed. Every confident woman has faced doubt, rejection, or criticism at some point in her life. What sets her apart is that she doesn't let those moments define her. She learns from them, but she doesn't dwell on them. She uses them as fuel for growth. Instead of letting failure make her fearful, she lets it make her wiser. This resilience builds a deeper kind of confidence, one that can't be shaken by temporary setbacks, because she understands that success is not about avoiding failure, but about rising after every fall with stronger conviction. Confidence also grows through consistency. It's built in the small, daily moments when a woman chooses to believe in herself, even when no one else does. It's built every time she speaks her mind, takes a risk, or stands up for what she knows is right. The more she shows up for herself, the stronger her belief becomes. Confidence is like a muscle. It develops through practice and perseverance. It's not something that suddenly appears. It's something you strengthen over time through intention and courage. The confident woman does not view others as competition. She views them as collaborators, allies, and reflections of what's possible. She understands that lifting others up does not take away from her own light. In fact, it amplifies it, because true confidence is never threatened by the success of another. It's inspired by it. It's built on abundance, not scarcity. When you are truly confident, you can celebrate others wholeheartedly because their achievements do not diminish your own. Confidence allows a woman to live with freedom. Freedom from doubt, from needing approval, and from playing small. It gives her the ability to make decisions based on alignment, not fear. She becomes intentional about the opportunities she accepts and the energy she allows around her. Confidence empowers her to say no when something doesn't serve her, and to say yes when something scares her, but helps her grow. It's this balance of clarity and courage that gives her presence its strength. When a woman no longer measures her worth against others, she becomes the author of her own narrative. She redefines what success looks like for her life. She stops trying to meet unrealistic standards and instead sets her own. This shift is powerful because it transforms her mindset from comparison to confidence, from scarcity to self-assurance. She stops striving for approval and starts striving for authenticity. And that authenticity is magnetic. It draws opportunities, respect, and trust naturally. Confidence, in its truest form, is not something we are born with, but something we choose. It begins when we decide to stop doubting ourselves and start believing that who we are, as we are, is already enough. When we let go of comparison, we make space for self-belief to grow, and that belief becomes the foundation for everything else. Our leadership, our relationships, and our ability to impact the world with purpose and grace. Belief is the foundation of every confident woman's strength. It is the quiet conviction that whispers, "I am enough," even when the world tries to convince her otherwise. Before the applause, before the recognition, before any achievement, she believes in herself first. This belief isn't built overnight. It's cultivated through moments of doubt, moments of courage, and moments when no one else could see what she saw in herself. It's a decision she makes every single day to trust her own potential before there's any visible proof of success. That belief becomes the soil where confidence grows. A woman who believes in herself doesn't wait for others to tell her she's capable. She knows that validation is temporary, but self-belief is permanent. She understands that external approval can come and go, but what she builds from within cannot be taken away. Her belief is not loud or boastful, it's steady and unshakable. It allows her to move through uncertainty with grace because she's no longer dependent on anyone else's permission to dream or to act. She knows that confidence starts the moment she stops needing to be chosen and starts choosing herself. Belief gives her the strength to stand tall in a world that often doubts her. It allows her to walk into spaces that were never designed for her and still leave her mark. She knows that she may not have all the answers, but she has the ability to learn, adapt, and rise. Every challenge becomes a test of her faith in herself. When things don't go as planned, she doesn't see failure as evidence of her limits. She sees it as proof of her effort. Belief turns obstacles into opportunities because she knows that what she tells herself in private will shape what she creates in public. There's a unique kind of calm that comes with believing in yourself. It silences the noise of comparison and quiets the need for constant reassurance. A woman who believes in her own worth doesn't need to chase every opportunity out of fear of missing out. She becomes intentional. She knows what aligns with her purpose and what doesn't. This belief gives her clarity. It helps her say no when something doesn't serve her values and say yes to what truly fuels her growth. Because she's no longer operating from scarcity, she's grounded in self-assurance. Belief also changes how she speaks to herself. Instead of using language that limits her, she uses words that empower her. She replaces "I can't" with "I'll learn." She replaces "I'm not ready" with "I'm willing to try." This inner dialogue becomes her armor. The way she speaks to herself sets the tone for how she faces the world. Belief transforms her mindset from self-doubt to self-trust. And that shift changes everything. Because confidence isn't built through perfection. It's built through permission, the permission to be herself, to make mistakes, to grow, and to keep going. There's a certain resilience that belief creates. It becomes the force that keeps her standing when life tries to knock her down. She may have moments of uncertainty, but belief reminds her that setbacks are not signs to stop. They're signals to evolve. Every time she gets back up, her belief strengthens. It becomes less about never falling and more about trusting that she will always rise again. This resilience becomes her quiet power, the kind that doesn't need to be seen to be real. Belief gives her the courage to take risks that others avoid. It tells her that even if she fails, she'll still be okay. She stops waiting for perfect timing because she knows confidence doesn't come from waiting. It comes from doing. She stops asking, "What if I fail?" and starts asking, "What if I fly?" This mindset liberates her from fear because belief is the antidote to hesitation. It pushes her forward when her mind tells her to play small. Every bold step she takes becomes evidence that her belief was not misplaced. A woman with strong belief in herself inspires others without even trying. Her presence encourages those around her to question their own limitations. She becomes an example of what's possible when someone stops doubting and starts believing. Her belief doesn't just elevate her, it elevates everyone who witnesses it. Because belief is contagious, it spreads through example, not instruction. When others see her acting with conviction, they begin to see new possibilities for themselves. Belief also transforms how she faces fear. Fear no longer becomes a wall, it becomes a signal that she's growing. She learns that courage doesn't exist without fear, and confidence doesn't exist without uncertainty. Belief bridges the two. It reminds her that she doesn't have to have everything figured out to move forward. She simply has to trust herself enough to begin. This mindset allows her to keep taking action even when the outcome is unclear, because deep down she knows that belief will guide her where logic sometimes cannot. Belief, in its purest form, is not arrogance. It's humility combined with certainty, the humility to keep learning and the certainty that she's capable of more. It's the internal anchor that keeps her steady in storms, the quiet voice that says keep going when everything else says give up. It's the difference between waiting for opportunity and creating it. It's the energy that allows her to walk into the unknown with confidence, not because she knows what will happen, but because she trusts herself enough to handle whatever does. Confidence is often misunderstood as a feeling that magically appears when everything goes right. But in truth, it's a decision, a conscious choice to move forward even when fear is present. A confident woman doesn't wait for courage to arrive fully formed. She doesn't need every doubt to disappear before taking the first step. She understands that action comes before assurance. She knows that confidence is not something that finds her in the absence of fear, but something she creates through motion. Every time she chooses to show up despite uncertainty, she strengthens her belief in herself. This decision to act, even when scared, becomes a turning point in her life. Instead of waiting to feel ready, she moves forward and allows readiness to catch up later. She recognizes that fear will always exist in some form. It's a part of growth. But she refuses to let it control her. Where others see fear as a stop sign, she sees it as a signal that she's moving in the right direction. Because if something doesn't scare her a little, it probably isn't stretching her enough. She doesn't let fear shrink her world. She uses it as fuel to expand it. Every confident woman has moments of doubt, but the difference is how she responds to them. She doesn't let self-doubt sit in the driver's seat. She listens to it, acknowledges it, but then keeps driving. She knows that courage doesn't erase fear. It simply decides that fear doesn't get to make the final call. Each time she takes a small step toward her goal, she builds evidence that she's capable. Over time, those small victories accumulate, forming a foundation of self-trust so strong that no amount of external pressure can shake it. When she decides to act in spite of fear, something powerful happens. She begins to redefine what fear means. Instead of interpreting it as danger, she starts to see it as direction. Fear becomes an indicator that she's entering new territory, that she's growing beyond what she once believed was possible. This perspective shifts everything. It frees her from the idea that she must wait for the perfect moment or the perfect mindset to begin. She learns that progress doesn't come from waiting for courage. It comes from taking one imperfect step after another. The confident woman understands that no one ever feels completely ready. Every person she's ever admired, every leader she's ever looked up to, has faced the same internal dialogue. What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? But she also understands that the difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't fear, it's choice. The choice to act while afraid. The choice to continue moving even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. She knows that bravery isn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it anyway. Through this practice, she becomes stronger, not because her fear disappears, but because her faith grows louder than her doubt. She realizes that every time she says yes to an opportunity, she's rewriting her own story. Each decision to act builds momentum, and with momentum comes confidence. This is how she transforms, by proving to herself over and over again that she can handle discomfort, that she can rise after uncertainty, and that she can create her own sense of assurance through persistence. The decision to move forward also reshapes how she views mistakes. Instead of seeing them as proof that she's unqualified, she sees them as signs that she's trying, learning, evolving. Fear of failure loses its grip when she understands that failure is not fatal, it's feedback. Each mistake becomes a lesson, each setback a step closer to mastery. Confidence grows not from avoiding errors, but from surviving them. The more she experiences failure and continues anyway, the less power fear has over her decisions. When she chooses to act despite fear, she becomes an example for others. Her courage gives permission to those watching to do the same. Her decision doesn't just impact her own life, it ripples outward, inspiring others to take risks they've been avoiding. People don't follow perfection. They follow authenticity. And nothing is more authentic than a woman who admits she's scared but takes action anyway. Her vulnerability becomes her strength, and her strength becomes her influence. She also learns to separate temporary discomfort from lasting regret. Fear is momentary. It fades once the action is taken. Regret, however, lingers. A confident woman chooses the temporary discomfort of courage over the permanent ache of what if. She decides that she would rather stumble forward than stand still in safety. This mindset becomes the cornerstone of her growth. She keeps choosing courage, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Each time she does, she discovers new layers of her potential. Confidence for her is a continuous decision. It's not about erasing fear, but walking alongside it with determination. It's the voice inside that says, I don't know how this will end, but I'm doing it anyway. It's waking up each day and deciding, again and again, that fear will not dictate her future. Every brave choice, every imperfect action, every leap into the unknown reinforces that decision. Confidence becomes less of a feeling she waits for and more of a lifestyle she lives. Confidence is not a treasure buried somewhere waiting to be discovered. It is something that must be built, shaped, and strengthened over time. Every confident woman understands that the person she is today is the result of choices, not chance. She knows that confidence does not arrive one morning with certainty and ease. It grows through every decision to act when hesitation tries to hold her back. Each time she steps outside her comfort zone, she is laying another brick in the foundation of her self-assurance. The more she acts, the more she trusts herself, and the more she trusts herself, the more her confidence deepens. It begins with small, deliberate actions. Speaking up in a meeting when it feels uncomfortable, saying no to something that doesn't align with her values, taking the first step toward a dream without knowing all the details. These moments may seem insignificant to others, but to her, they are powerful acts of self-respect. Each one tells her subconscious that her voice matters, her choices matter, and her presence matters. With every small act of courage, she creates new evidence that she is capable, and this evidence slowly becomes the foundation of her inner strength. She learns that confidence cannot be borrowed from others, it must come from within. No amount of praise or validation can replace the feeling that comes from knowing you've shown up for yourself. When she acts on her convictions, even in the face of uncertainty, she experiences something far more valuable than approval. She experiences integrity. Confidence grows when her actions align with her beliefs. The more consistent she becomes in showing up authentically, the less she needs external validation to feel secure. Action also transforms fear into familiarity. The first time she takes a risk, her heart might race, her voice might tremble, and doubt might whisper in her ear. But when she survives it and realizes that she's stronger than she thought, she redefines what fear means. The next time it comes around, it feels a little smaller, a little less intimidating. Confidence grows not because fear disappears, but because she has learned that fear no longer controls her. With each act of courage, the unfamiliar becomes familiar, and what once seemed impossible becomes manageable. Over time, she begins to understand that confidence is built in private long before it is displayed in public. It's formed in those quiet moments when no one is watching. When she chooses to study a little longer, prepare a little more, or practice a skill even after failing at it repeatedly. Confidence doesn't come from the spotlight, it comes from the shadows of discipline. It is the byproduct of commitment, consistency, and perseverance. The woman who continually invests in her growth builds a kind of confidence that can't be shaken by temporary setbacks or fleeting opinions. She also learns that perfection is the enemy of progress. Waiting to feel fully prepared or flawless before acting only delays growth. So she moves forward imperfectly, knowing that progress is better than hesitation. Every misstep becomes a lesson, every attempt an opportunity to improve. Confidence doesn't come from getting everything right. It comes from surviving everything that went wrong and continuing anyway. Through trial and error, she realizes that the real magic happens not in avoiding mistakes, but in learning from them. With every new challenge she embraces, her definition of confidence evolves. It stops being about how she appears to others and becomes about how she feels about herself. Confidence becomes less about control and more about trust. Trusting her instincts, trusting her preparation, trusting her resilience. She realizes that true confidence isn't loud or boastful. It's quiet, steady, and deeply rooted. It's not about knowing everything. It's about believing she can handle whatever she doesn't know yet. Her willingness to take action, even without guarantees, builds an energy that attracts opportunity. People notice when someone is sure of herself, not because she's perfect, but because she's real. Her confidence creates momentum, and momentum brings new possibilities. Every door she pushes open leads to another, and before she knows it, she's standing in spaces she once thought were unreachable. The growth that began with one small act of courage becomes a ripple effect that transforms her entire life. As she continues to build confidence through action, she also becomes more compassionate toward herself. She no longer criticizes every mistake or second guesses every decision. Instead, she treats herself with patience. Understanding that growth is not linear, confidence allows her to see failure not as proof of inadequacy, but as evidence of effort. She starts celebrating her attempts as much as her achievements. This kindness toward herself becomes another layer of her strength, one that reinforces her belief that she is always capable of beginning again. Through this ongoing process, she realizes that confidence is never something she can check off a list. It is a lifelong practice. It is built and rebuilt every time she acts despite uncertainty, speaks despite doubt, and stands tall despite fear. Confidence is not found in waiting for the right moment. It's created in every imperfect step she takes toward becoming the woman she is meant to be. There comes a moment when a woman realizes that waiting for permission is a cage she built without even noticing. She begins to understand that no one is coming to hand her the authority to live her own life fully. The confident woman refuses to wait for someone else to recognize her potential because she knows her value does not depend on acknowledgement. She decides that her dreams, her voice, and her goals are not things that need to be approved. They are things that deserve to exist. When she steps into that truth, she moves from seeking validation to owning her power, and the shift changes everything. From a young age, many women are taught to be polite, agreeable, and considerate to the point of silence. They learn to ask, to check, to ensure others are comfortable before they take up space. The confident woman breaks that pattern. She no longer asks if she's too much or too ambitious. She stops shrinking her achievements to make others feel secure. She realizes that her light was never meant to be dimmed to comfort the room. It was meant to illuminate it. And when she allows herself to take up space unapologetically, she gives others permission to do the same. She no longer seeks validation from external sources because she understands that validation is fleeting. The same people who praise her one day may doubt her the next, and tying her worth to their opinions only keeps her trapped in a cycle of insecurity. Instead, she builds her own sense of worth from within. She becomes her own source of approval. The more she trusts her own judgment, the less she needs others to affirm it. That independence of thought becomes her quiet revolution. It's not rebellion for the sake of defiance. It's liberation through self-respect. When she stops waiting for permission, she discovers that her potential was never missing. It was only waiting to be claimed. She begins to act on her ideas instead of asking if they're good enough. She takes initiative instead of waiting for opportunities to appear. This proactive mindset becomes a catalyst for transformation. The more she leads her life with intention, the more aligned she becomes with her purpose. She doesn't need to prove her value anymore because she lives it in everything she does. Her confidence radiates not from approval, but from authenticity. A confident woman also stops apologizing for existing as she is. She no longer apologizes for speaking assertively, for dreaming big, or for saying no. She understands that every time she apologizes for her own power, she weakens the foundation of her confidence. So she practices standing tall in her truth, even when it feels uncomfortable. She stops softening her edges just to be accepted, and instead learns to stand comfortably in her strength. She realizes that confidence is not about being liked, it's about being real. This refusal to wait for validation also reshapes how she handles rejection. Instead of seeing it as a verdict on her worth, she sees it as redirection. She learns that a no from others is not the end of her vision. It's an opportunity to create her own path. When one door closes, she no longer sits outside it waiting for someone to let her in, she builds a new one. This mindset frees her from dependence on approval because she knows that her progress isn't determined by others' willingness to see her potential. It's determined by her commitment to pursue it. In this space of self-trust, her voice becomes stronger. She speaks her opinions without hesitation, not because she believes she's always right, but because she knows her perspective matters. Her voice no longer trembles under the weight of judgment. It becomes clear, intentional, and rooted in conviction. People begin to listen not because she demands it, but because she embodies confidence in every word she speaks. Her self-assurance becomes magnetic, drawing respect and attention naturally. When she no longer waits for permission, she starts creating opportunities for others too. Her confidence becomes a bridge, not a barrier. She opens doors, shares knowledge, and uplifts those who are still learning to find their own voices. Because she knows how difficult it once was to believe in herself, she becomes the example she once needed. Her self-empowerment doesn't isolate her, it inspires connection. Confidence, for her, is no longer a solo pursuit. It's a force that multiplies when shared. The confident woman also becomes more decisive. Without the need for validation, she stops second, guessing every choice. She listens to her intuition and acts on it. She trusts her inner guidance more than the noise around her. Even when she makes mistakes, she doesn't spiral into regret. She adjusts and continues forward. This decisiveness doesn't come from arrogance, but from clarity. She knows who she is, what she values, and what she stands for. That sense of direction allows her to move through life with purpose instead of hesitation. Every time she acts without waiting for validation, she reinforces her own authority. She becomes the author of her story, not a character waiting for approval from others. Her choices start reflecting confidence. Her presence starts commanding respect, and her energy shifts from seeking to embodying. By choosing to no longer ask for permission, she frees herself from the limitations of expectation. She begins to live from a place of certainty instead of doubt, power instead of permission, authenticity instead of approval. Confidence, when fully embraced, has the power to ripple far beyond one person's life. A confident woman doesn't just change her own path. She changes the environment around her. Her presence has a quiet influence that inspires others to see what is possible when someone stands firm in self-belief. People notice the way she carries herself, not because she demands attention, but because she radiates authenticity. Her confidence becomes contagious. It awakens something in those around her, reminding them that they, too, are capable of standing tall. When a woman believes in herself, her energy shifts. She walks differently, speaks differently, and approaches challenges differently. This shift doesn't go unnoticed. Others begin to sense her clarity and conviction, and it naturally inspires trust. Her confidence gives her credibility, not because she's flawless, but because she's real. She doesn't hide her fears or pretend to have all the answers. Instead, she moves forward despite uncertainty, showing everyone that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act while it still exists. In doing so, she sets a new standard for what leadership looks like. Her confidence becomes a force of permission for others. People who once held back begin to speak up. Those who doubted their abilities start taking chances. Her example quietly whispers to them, if she can do it, so can I. She doesn't push or preach, she demonstrates. That's the power of confidence. It doesn't need to be shouted to be heard. It changes things through presence, through action, through consistency. Her influence spreads naturally, not by demand but by demonstration. A confident woman also brings stability to the spaces she enters. Because she's anchored in who she is, she doesn't crumble under criticism or inflate under praise. She remains steady, and that steadiness gives others permission to exhale. In a world full of uncertainty, she becomes a calm example of what it means to trust yourself deeply. People are drawn to her not because she promises perfection, but because she embodies peace in motion. Her sense of self becomes a grounding force that others instinctively lean toward. Her confidence reshapes her relationships. Instead of competing, she collaborates. Instead of comparing, she connects. She understands that another person's success doesn't threaten her own. It expands what's possible. When she celebrates others, she amplifies her own light rather than dimming it. This generosity of spirit makes her presence magnetic. People feel safer around her, more inspired, more willing to step into their own potential. Confidence, when rooted in authenticity, builds community, not ego. The influence of a confident woman also extends to the decisions she makes. Because she knows her worth, she no longer settles for less than what aligns with her values. She chooses partnerships, opportunities, and environments that reflect her standards. Her confidence raises the bar, not only for herself, but for everyone connected to her. She demonstrates through her choices that self-respect is non-negotiable. Her boundaries become a blueprint for others to follow, teaching by example that saying no is as powerful as saying yes. In her professional life, her confidence allows her to lead with both strength and empathy. She listens deeply, communicates clearly, and makes decisions with integrity. She doesn't need to dominate a room to command respect. Her presence does it naturally. Her calm assurance encourages others to bring their best ideas forward because her confidence doesn't silence voices. It amplifies them. She becomes the kind of leader people remember, not because of authority, but because of authenticity. Her confidence also transforms the way she handles failure. Where others see an end, she sees a lesson. Her ability to rise after setbacks shows others that resilience is built through experience, not avoidance. She doesn't hide her struggles, she uses them to connect, to teach, to empower. This vulnerability doesn't weaken her influence. It strengthens it. Because when people see someone who can fail with grace and still continue forward, they find courage to do the same. Her confidence becomes a quiet revolution against the fear of imperfection. Even in the smallest interactions, her confidence leaves an impression. The way she looks someone in the eye, the way she listens, the way she follows through on her word, all of it communicates a sense of self-assuredness that others remember. She doesn't need to be the loudest voice to make an impact. Her consistency, her presence, and her belief in herself speak louder than words ever could. Through her everyday actions, she shows that confidence is not performance, it's alignment between what she thinks, feels, and does. A confident woman's impact reaches far beyond her own goals or success. She becomes a mirror in which others begin to see their own potential reflected back at them. Her courage gives people permission to dream bigger, to take risks, to believe in their worth. She shows that confidence is not about being unafraid, but about being unstoppable in the face of fear. Her influence continues long after she leaves the room, carried forward by every person who decided to believe in themselves because they saw her do it first.